We've all seen those movies such as Mission Impossible where the main protagonist jumps off a plane and lands in a very risky location and somehow manages to survive. Although this is a movie, can this potentially happen in real life? Well, on November 24th, 1971, a man by the name of Dan Cooper bought a one-way ticket to Portland, Oregon. And in the middle of the flight, he gave a letter to the flight attendant that said, "I have a bomb." And after negotiating with the police, he demanded $200,000 and 4 parachutes in exchange for the passengers on board. After the plane landed safely and the exchange was made, a new course was set for the plane to go, as demanded by Dan Cooper himself. He demanded the plane to be flown to New Mexico. And in the middle of the flight, he did the unthinkable. He jumped off the plane into the night sky, never to be heard from or seen again. This is now known as the D.B. Cooper case, and it has baffled investigators, news reporters, and the media on what was the fate of D.B. Cooper. Did he survive? Did he die? Or is he living the life in Canada? No one really knows. However, let's look at the facts. An inexperienced skydiver such as Dan Cooper will not have been able to survive the fall. First, let's look at the weather. According to FBI agent Larry Carr, the lead FBI investigator of the D.B. Cooper case, said that at the time he jumped off the plane, he was facing up to 200 miles per hour wind. It was pitch black. It was pitch black and it was raining. This means he had no visibility. And additionally, according to the Federal Aviation Administration, visibility is one of the minimum weather requirements for skydiving, something Dan Cooper did not have. Well, what happens if Dan Cooper knew when he was going to land? He timed it perfectly. Well, History.com pointed out if Dan Cooper knew at the time he was going to jump out, he would have demanded a specific flight pattern instead of broadly saying, "Take me to New Mexico." This means he could have landed, he did not know where he was going to land. He could have landed anywhere. He could have landed in the forest. He could have landed in a highly populated area, or where it's now believed he landed in a lake. Well, what happens if he was an experienced skydiver? He could have probably maneuvered through the harsh winds. Well, according to the FBI, Dan Cooper was lacking the necessary equipment to even jump from the plane. According to the FBI, his reserve chute was sewn shut and can only be used for training, and additionally, his parachute could not have been steered, making it even more difficult to survive and maneuver through the harsh winds. Well, what happens if he was the best skydiver in the world? He could easily adapt to his environment and maneuver through the harsh winds, even if he couldn't steer somehow. Well, this was also thought by the FBI. The FBI originally thought he was an experienced skydiver. However, after further investigation, they realized that no experienced skydiver would have actually jumped from a plane with 200 miles per hour wind in the night sky while it was raining. It would have been way too risky. And this theory was later backed up when they realized that Dan Cooper never checked his parachute. An experienced skydiver would have noticed that his parachute was sewn shut, and can only be used for training, not making it ideal to jump off the plane in that harsh weather. Well, what happens if he managed to somehow survive the fall? Is there any traces of the money Did he spend it? Well, after the FBI released the serial number of the money to the public, the FBI have not been able to find any of the money in circulation around the United States. However, the FBI published a story about a boy in 1980 that found 5,800 with the exact same serial number 18 miles away from where it was presumed Dan Cooper landed. It was found near a lake, buried. However, the fact that it was found 18 miles away had led many to theorize that Dan Cooper could have potentially survived the fall, especially Citizen Sleuth theorized this. Citizen Sleuth is a group of scientists that emerged after the FBI requested help from the public. They were granted they were granted access to the files and resources from the FBI. This is the Dr. Leonard Palmer, a genealogist that has helped the citizen sleuths, did an experiment with the rubber bands to check the erosion. The original theory was that from its presumed location, it had swam from the river all the way to 18 miles away. That what Dr. Palmer did was check the erosion over time. She found out that after 12 months, the rubber bands would have eroded. However, new discovery has led that by another Citizen Sleuths member. This story was published by the Daily Mail UK. Was that Tom Kayet, a paleontologist, found that the money could have not been. The money was only underneath in water for less than 2 months. So what have we learned? Well, as I pointed out, that the harsh weather and the inexperience and the disappearance of money demonstrate that Dan Cooper could not have survived the fall. We have to often phrase the reality based on the facts rather than what we would have hoped would have happened.